Joshua T. Aaron, 94, College of Human Ecology. Janice M. Ashley, 98, College of Arts and Sciences.
27 names.
Blackman Jr., 96, College of Agriculture and Life Sciences.
27 people, 27 members of the Ithaca College and Cornell University communities who lost their lives on September 11, 2001.
College of Agriculture and Life Sciences.
A crushingly enormous number for those who knew and loved them, yet only a small part of the nearly 3,000 deaths that resulted from the series of terroristic attacks that occurred on the morning of September 11th. 20 years ago, 246 people boarded a morning flight. 2,606 people went to work. 434 firefighters went to the station. 60 police hit their beat. 8 paramedics checked their supplies for the day. None of them saw past 10 a.m. Gary Stewart, Vice President of the Cornell Community Relations, reflects.
And when I was sitting there, I was thinking, what would these people be doing now? What would their lives be like? How do their families feel today?
Gina Bautista organized one of the 9/11 commemoration events over the weekend in Ithaca. Gina is the director of the Office of Assemblies at Cornell University and plans dozens of events each year for the Cornell community. But this event was special for her.
I grew up in a military family. I lived overseas, so I had a very, very different lens on what it meant to be an American. And I take patriotism very, very seriously. And it's challenging in Ithaca sometimes to do that because politics and patriotism are often conflated. But I happily separate the two, and I very proudly am very proud to be from the United States. I do events for the university and love to do that kind of planning, but this one particularly was of great interest just because this was a major event in my own life.
In addition to the reading of the names of alumni who lost their lives, a memorial wreath was placed on the live slope. Other members of the community made remarks regarding the importance of commemorating such a tragic event. But one of the highlights of the event was in fact a nonverbal representation of the shock of the losses that occurred 20 years ago. This was the Cornell Clock, chiming at each moment an attack occurred on the morning of September 11th. At 8:46, the moment American Airlines Flight 11 struck the World Trade Center's North Tower. At 9:03, the moment United Airlines Flight 175 struck the World Trade Center's South Tower. At 9:37, the moment hijackers crashed American Airlines Flight 77 into the Pentagon near Washington, D.C. And finally, at 10:03. The moment when passengers aboard United Airlines Flight 93 launched a counterattack, causing hijackers to crash the plane into an empty field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania.
What came to mind was something my own grandfather told me a long time ago. We were talking about his lived experiences, and I would never know what some of those things were. And he had said that the closest we can ever come to experiencing something that you haven't actually lived through is to look into the eyes of somebody who has, and then it becomes your shared experience. Some of us had lived through the event and whatever that meant in our own lives, and then a lot of people weren't even born yet, or if they were very, very small and young.
While most college students today don't have a memory of the 9/11 events because of their age, veterans of the United States Armed Forces cannot forget.
Like everybody else, I remember where I was during 9/11. And the change before 9/11 and after in the perception of the military, I felt was distinct.
That's Janice H. Chen, a Cornell University alumnus who recently completed 30 years of active service with the U.S. Army, and one of the panelists on Cornell's event discussing stories of military alumni held on September 9th.
Before then, it wasn't bad. It was just a little bit less visible, a little bit less understood what the military was for. There were conflicts all throughout the first decade that I was in. We had Somalia involvement, and we had Operation Desert Storm. But when 9/11 happened, I felt like it motivated a lot of support to come toward us, because we, the military, not like I'm in anymore, but we as the military were going after something that we felt the American public was very supportive of. And so the support that was always there became more vocal, more visible, more tangible and palpable. And I saw that within the first 2 years, from 2001 to 2003 or 4 was when that shift happened. And I was always proud to be in the military, but I was that much more proud that I was part of this big club across the joint forces that was doing something hopefully good and physically and visible to the world.
Others in the panel also felt that 9/11 greatly affected the way that the military was perceived by the people of America. Tom Swanson, also a Cornell alumnus, said that people became a lot more positive towards the military in the immediate aftermath of 9/11. Swanson joined the Cornell ROTC program in 1973, 2 years after widespread protests on campus against the Vietnam War.
I showed up 2 years after that, and actually for my freshman year, I was a 4-year Air Force ROTC scholarship student, and for my freshman year, we were not allowed to wear uniforms on campus. You had to wear civvies into Barton Hall, change into your military uniforms for drill and that kind of thing. And it rapidly changed after that.
Despite these changes in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, perceptions of military have not continued to remain entirely positive, especially with a lot of criticism in the following years regarding the elongated war in Afghanistan, loss of countless civilian lives, and other criticism regarding the large military budget and sexual assault allegations within the military.
You know, as a civilian, when I hear people talk about the military budget or sexual assault in the military or other things, I feel like I don't necessarily have as much context, because I don't know exactly how the military functions. Like, why would it have such a humongous budget? And is that good? Is that bad? Should we be spending money somewhere else? So is that what you mean? Like people who served should be also in those leadership posts and making those decisions and be educated at Cornell so they can get to those points? Like, is that what you mean? Like bridging that divide?
That was Callie Santana, host of the Stories of Cornell Military Alumni event on September 9th. Roland Molina, one of the panelists and a Cornell student who served in the Marine Corps from 2012 to 2017, offered an answer.
One of the purposes of this panel is to get veterans' perspectives, right? And that's not a perspective that a lot of the kids here at Cornell get to experience. So that's what I mean is, essentially, I want all CUVA members, all undergraduate veteran members, to make friends with, non-military folks, just so that they get to know that, hey, we're not, we're not stereotypical, just PTSD ridden, what have you, whatever stereotypes there are of veterans. That we just want to succeed and provide for our families and, be good Americans.
Jessica Palominos, who served in the Marine Corps from 2013 to 2017, also shared her perspective.
Me personally, I don't mind that sort of discourse, because I think it's in that sort of deliberation between those that say the military budget should be increased and those that say it should be decreased. I think we find that comfortable medium where we say, I think this is what we should be spending, and I think that deliberation helps us get there. At times, it just feels like the discourse just seems like it's one-sided or it's the other-sided. But when I analyze it from both sides, it does seem to always come to a middle ground.
While many of the panelists did not join the military solely as a result of the events of 9/11, for many it was something that did become a factor.
And Paul, do you find that 9/11 influenced your decision to follow a career in the military, or your decisions after the military, and how?
I would say yes and no, both directly and indirectly. I think for anybody who joined the military after 9/11, there's probably a 9/11 flavor in the reasons for why they did join. I think it's through many different ways of society, kind of put in front of you as this is what's going on, this is how you can help, and these are the ways that you can do it. So I think it definitely influenced my decision. However, it was one of many kind of things that pointed me in that direction.
That was Paul Rojas, a panelist and a Cornell University alumni who served in the U.S. Navy from 2012 to 2016. Jamie T. Vazquez, who served in the armed forces from 2004 to 2014, had a similar answer, with his other big reason actually being the stories of soldiers who lost their lives during World War II. He related the story of a friend who was in New York City the day of the attacks.
He worked at Tower 2, and he was late to work, and he saw the second plane hit, and had to run all the way to Brooklyn. He tells me this story. And I don't know if that was one of the reasons why I joined, but also in my fraternity, we had a plaque of about 30 names of World War II Cornell students that went to World War II and never came back to Cornell to finish the degree because they died in war. And I was sergeant at arms. I had to clean it once a month. I had to polish it once a month and see those names. And I think out of those two experiences, that sacrifice that others did, even Cornell students that I never met 50 years ago when I was there in 2002, propelled me to say, it's my calling now that I need to serve and do my part.
The event ended in tones of laughter and fellow military members sharing stories of the force that were relatable largely only to each other. Yet there was a palpable gloom that struck the banter every time 9/11 was brought up. It's the same gloom that surrounded events across Ithaca yesterday, as the numerous lives lost of that day were remembered a full 20 years later. Whether represented by the lowering of Ithaca College's Dillingham fountains, the ceremonies conducted by various area fire departments, or the ones we attended at Cornell.
Today we pause to remember those we lost and that tragic day. And we also remember the strength of our community and our efforts to bind the spiritual wounds of our friends and our colleagues.
For WICB News, I'm Grant Johnson.